So let me tell you just a smidge about the book. As I mentioned already, this is a collection of 16 first-person stories, and we have broken the book into themes, which include breaking cycles and surviving to thriving, building trust within communities, as well as being an agent of change. And when you read the stories, and today you're going to hear from 3 of our storytellers, you're going to notice some of the highlights of the impacts of injustice that we see in Baltimore, particularly on the health on Black, Brown, immigrant, and LGBTQ plus communities. We discuss mental health, housing, access to care. And within these stories, you're also going to see these themes come through of resilience, advocacy, and the real power of people's voices. And again, when we are sharing these stories, it's not just about numbers and statistics, it's about the real people that have been impacted by these stories that are giving us their very personal accounts that we're very thankful for. And in the book, you'll also see we have some guidance about how we should do some discussion around the stories. And we're going to model that today. We're going to talk a little bit more about the grounding behind the discussions, and then we're actually going to be in small groups and have the discussions that you'll see within the book as well. And all of that's going to be happening within the room and with some of our colleagues that have been very supportive along the way. Again, what I'm just showing here are the 3 sections of the book and the titles of all of the different stories. Again, 16 total stories. Today, you're going to be hearing 3 of those stories that we're going to utilize for our small group discussion. Okay. All right. So I am going to be leading a little bit of a panel discussion with our steering committee. You see 5 people up here, and that's because Steffi has been one of the most critical parts of the team, but was only able to make it come literally moments before. So I want to make sure that we thank Steffi as well. Steffi graduated from the Bloomberg School of Public Health, and in the 2023-2024 academic year, she was our program assistant, really supporting this book. So she really is a critical part of this team, and we couldn't have done it without Steffi. So thank you very much for your incredible contributions and your continued support of the project, even after graduation. So thank you. I will just quickly, I've introduced Steffi. Then we have both Kristen and Rama, who are joining us from Hopkins Community Connection, which is one of our partners as well. Lauren works here at the School of Nursing. And then we have Angelique, who works with the House of Ruth, Maryland. And our fabulous editors, along with myself and Izzat Shahade, help to organize this. And really what we want to do is ask some questions of the steering committee and the editors of the book about the process. I will say not everybody has to answer every question. We've got a couple of mics to pass around. They already know the questions, but again, we want to make sure that we give an opportunity for you all to learn a little bit more. So let's jump in, shall we? My first question for our panelists is, tell us, why did you volunteer to participate as a steering committee member for this book? When we put out the call from Source looking for people, why'd you step up and volunteer? Why was that important to you? Mics should be on, and anybody can jump in as going first.
Hi, everyone. It's Lauren again. I volunteered because it was a unique opportunity to do something in the community. I work at the School of Nursing, but I don't live in Baltimore, so I don't always get to interface with the community except for people I work with. So I thought this was an awesome opportunity to do more in the community and to work with these wonderful people up here to do something very impactful.
There we go. Hi, everyone. I'm Kristen. Part of the reason why I was excited to volunteer with this project is I have the privilege of working with a number of learners across Hopkins, whether that's undergraduate students primarily, but graduate students, residents, and they had been asking me for years for an opportunity to share some of the stories that they had the privilege of hearing from their patients that had really transformed them. Sometimes I'm really able to see growth from students who are new to Baltimore but have really taken an intentional decision to participate in community service and have been transformed by that experience. And they have come back at the end or at graduation and said, I wish there was a way I could share this with everyone else who perhaps doesn't have the opportunity to engage in the same way I have ability to write or storytell. Is there a way we could do this? And I just couldn't quite figure out how to do it. And thankfully, with our partnership with Source, when we heard about the Facing Project, I knew this was something that was going to be very beneficial, that we had some students and community members that would be eager to tell their story, but to have the training and support from the Facing Project to be able to do that in an ethical and an impactful way. I couldn't turn it down. I was really eager to participate. I'm grateful for the opportunity.
Hi, everyone. Angelique. I think for us, me specifically at House of Ruth, Maryland, we already engage in a storytelling program, which is very small cohorts, two a year. Usually 12 folks graduate. And I think it was really important for us, especially being a community partner of Source and not specifically within the Hopkins family, but Hopkins family adjacent, I like to say. I think it was important for us to be a part of this project because it gave us another opportunity to amplify resilience. Often, especially in the work that we do at House of Ruth, Maryland, we are constantly hearing the stories of what's happening in the moment and how people are walking through tremendous levels of trauma, but not often do you get to see the resilience. Not often do you get to hear the other side, the how I made it through. And so this is really important for us to just partner and be a part of it, because being able to share these stories in such a beautiful way and show people that there is light at the end of some of these really dark tunnels was really important for us.
Awesome. Thank you all. So let me move on to another question, which is, why do you think that these stories are important for us to focus on at this time?
This a little bit at the beginning, saying we need a part 2 to see where people are now with all the changes going on in our country. But it's important because it empowers the storytellers, right? It gives them an opportunity to talk about how far they've come, or maybe just where they're starting from, right? To show up authentically as themselves. And I think it's especially important now for people to see that people are able to persevere and overcome. So that's why I think it's that important that we do these stories.
Thanks so much. I think, one of the things that is so important about just, the human experience and, the experience of many of our community members is being able to sort of share those experiences. I think a lot of times, especially in academic institutions at Hopkins, we care about the numbers and the percentages and the metrics, but I think at the end of the day, the thing that really ties everything all together is that human experience. What are our neighbors and our community members really going through, and being able to sort of shine a light on those experiences is how we, have these conversations, especially in this climate, with sort of everything going on and lots of communication or miscommunication about, policies and their effects. I think that's just so important to highlight, and I'm really excited to be able to be a part of this project and sort of keep this going and moving forward.
Hi, this is Steffi. So I really appreciate this question. I'm in the throes of, we're all in the throes of this crisis, I think. I think it's important to name it. We're in a multi-layered crisis in our country right now. And at this time, I think we're also in an era where our voices are being stripped from us and we're being erased, quite literally, being dehumanized. And I think in so many ways, one of the most powerful things that we have is our voices. No one should ever take our voices away from us. And there is so much power in you pushing back against this narrative, against this crushing weight of whatever this administration is doing, to put your voices out there. It's an act of defiance. It's a power move. It is a way to reassert your value, your importance, and your belonging on this planet, in these lands, in these Baltimore streets. And it doesn't matter what they do, but this book is here. this book is published, your voices are published, your stories are out there. They can't just erase that. It makes some people uncomfortable to have to face the realities of the injustices, but so be it. It's time to get real uncomfortable, because what is a little discomfort compared to the actual physical, mental, psychological injustices that have existed the last few centuries. So.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Thanks, Steffi. It's been a lot of our conversations throughout the process of the book as well, so it's just really powerful to share that with all of you. So let me take the questions in a little bit of a different direction, because I want to talk a little bit about the process, right? So there was a process of recruiting people to be storytellers and to be story writers. Can y'all share a little bit about that process, as well as any challenges or insights that arose from us putting out the call and seeking people to tell their stories or be story writers?
You're going to see us do that every time we turn it on to make sure that it's on. I remember part of the process after we had put out the call requests for folks from our different levels of networks, whether it was in Hopkins, outside of Hopkins. I think the hardest part for me personally, and I'm sure we can attest, was when we had so many responses. And then now we have this beautiful bucket. What do we do? And how do we make sure that every voice is heard? And how do we pair? It was a lot of matchmaking. How do we pair this writer with this storyteller? How do we make this all work? And then just the usual administrative stuff, keeping track of people. I mean, this was a beautiful labor of love, but literally it was an administrative task. Spreadsheets. Y'all remember those spreadsheets? Those beautiful Steffi, those amazing spreadsheets. Really keeping everyone in all in sync. And so for me, the process was really managing people, but remembering that these are stories that need to be told. No one needs to be disregarded. No story is too small or too horrific. Like, everything needed to be a part of the project. So for me, it was just watching us kind of maneuver and make sure that every voice was heard and that the pairings were done.
And I think also picking the themes, right? Figuring out what are the themes, what are the common themes going through the stories. That was also intensive, but it was rewarding, I think, when we finally figured out, okay, well, these fall pretty much under this topic. So.
And I think the only thing I would add is that editing to make sure that the stories, while representing everyone's individual experience, they were edited in a way that felt like a cohesive book within the themes as well. And so being very careful with how to make sure we're not changing voice or impact throughout. That was a different way than you might edit a paper for publication or an article, but really thinking about the entire body of work and the messaging that was there was a little bit different way to look at the stories.
Awesome. So let me ask what you were feeling when you were reading the stories and preparing to put this final book together. We had the gift of these stories coming back. What did you feel when you read them?
Just pick up sort of where we were leaving off with Steffi is, despite it all, I was feeling hopeful. I was feeling encouraged. I was being grounded in the healing power of connection. For those of you who have read the stories, it wasn't a system that swooped in and healed or transformed someone's experience. It was a person who was listening, who was available, who was holding space for what someone was going through without judgment. And I felt power coming back into us, into our communities, and it felt a little bit rebellious to feel so much hope at that time, and was such a good, like I said, grounding reminder and the impact that we can have and how dangerous it is to be in a moment where you were feeling hopeless. Sort of before that.
I'll add as well that definitely that power, but I think the initial feelings I had in reading the stories were an immense sense of responsibility, the amount of trust that you have afforded us in sharing your stories, your deep stories, is I don't take any of that lightly. I still do not. If anybody takes this book and try to use it sideways, like I will be the first one outside fighting for it. So that sense of responsibility is real. And I think that sense of responsibility is not just in the process of reading the stories, but it's a sense of community, of togetherness. It's the same sense of responsibility we should be having with our next door neighbor and understanding, like we're in this together. And beyond that sense of responsibility is also just pride in the bravery that it took to put this out there and to be able to show other people that they matter too and that their stories matter too.
Awesome. My last question for our panelists. What do you hope for those that read the book? What are your hopes?
I hope the stories empower people and encourages them, gives them courage to tell their own stories, but also maybe to say, I can make it too. This person made it. I can make it too. I can be my authentic self. I don't have to hide who I am. All of those things that the storytellers told us, that it's okay that we can believe in our own selves, in our own lives.
I think, as you're reading these stories, I think the thing that I always keep coming back to is just the healing power of being able to sort of tell your story. And I think a lot of times that is the first step of healing. And so I'm hoping, just like Lauren was saying, just like you all feel empowered to sort of share your stories and empower others to share their stories, because really this is just the beginning. And I think, sort of as all my other panelists have shared, this is a time where we really, can't just stand by and, just sit on our hands. It's really time to sort of get out there and, share stories and really sort of make noise, because that's sort of what facilitates change, and that's sort of what we need in this society and in this community, especially today and every day moving forward.
Definitely want to echo Lauren and Rama in that I hope that everyone that reads this book, that is allowed to share in this beautiful project, really shifts their voice to advocacy. Really says, okay, I hear and I see what's happening in the world. How can I make some noise? How can I get into some good trouble? How can I be a voice that amplifies this voice? Whose hands do I need to put this in next after I've read it? Who else needs to know that if you say it and you give it life, that it will grow? Often we're giving life to the wrong things and we're amplifying the wrong voices. But if, like a match, if we light this thing up and it can be a fire of change. And so I'm hoping that this will really be an advocacy piece, and that it can really begin the conversation about how do we exact change in this world.
Beautiful. So everyone, please join me in thanking the incredible steering committee and editors of the book. We were just so happy to finally be together, all together, and have this book. So yes, I'm a really little heart. So thank you all, and feel free to find a seat wherever. We're going to be joining throughout. So as I do a little bit of transition here, I'm going to be introducing one of our dear friends and colleagues, Dr. David Fakunle. David is an exceptional human being. Yeah. I mean, I'm not reading off of this thing. David, first of all, he is a son of Baltimore, East Baltimore, born and bred. He is an assistant professor at the Great Morgan State University, and he's also associate faculty here at the Bloomberg School of Public Health. He earned his PhD from the Bloomberg School of Public Health in the Department of Mental Health. We go back a long time. He's a very smart and wonderful guy, but his interests are definitely connected to the built environment, manifestations of systemic oppression, utilization of arts and culture to cultivate holistic health through humanity, justice, equity, and ultimately liberation. He definitely is a person that applies his artistic and cultural practices, such as Black storytelling, African drumming, singing, theater, in the proclamation of truth for over 25 years. And he collaborates with lots of different organizations throughout the Baltimore area and the DC region. I can go on and on about the list of different accolades that he has and organizations that he's connected with, including Discover Me, Recover Me, Wombworks, the Great Blacks and Wax Museum. But David is also one of the storytellers in the book. David also teaches about storytelling, and I always feel bad having to follow David, but I am going to take these slides down because you have a few that you'll share as well, and I'll turn it over to my friend David. All right.
How y'all doing? All right. If you would have told me when I started at this institution over a decade ago that I teach a class on storytelling, I would have never believed you. But here we are. If you would have told me when I was starting at this institution over a decade ago that I teach 2 classes at this institution on storytelling, I wouldn't believe you. But here we are. If you would have told me that the world would know me and love me and appreciate me for storytelling when I started at this institution over a decade ago, I wouldn't have believed you. But here we are. Change happens. Just got to be patient. So I don't have a lot of time. I could ramble on and on and on and on, but I got class to teach at 6 o'clock. So got to save some of my voice here. Just want to give you a few pointers on how to create, craft, and express your narrative. So this is Storytelling 101, the abridged version. All right. I first want you all to know that when you engage in creativity, it is good for your health. Point blank, period. There's an entire science that continues to be developed and flourishing around this known truth. And yes, most of us in this field know it's true. We just have to prove it scientifically, and we are. So I give a lot of props to the University of Florida, the Center for Arts and Medicine, and many other institutions that are buying in to the power of arts and culture for health and well-being, including this one. So just understand these various mechanisms by which creativity leads to health outcomes. And what you'll notice is that there's nothing that arts and culture cannot touch. Right? Nothing. Keep that in mind. Now, I'm going to presume many of you have already bought into this magic thing called storytelling, but if not, indulge me. How many of you are storytellers? Show of hands. Raise them high. I'm not asking if you have COVID. I'm asking if you're a storyteller. Okay, is there anybody who's convinced they're not a storyteller? Okay, cool. Your name, if I may ask.
Loy.
Nice to meet you. Loy, are you a human being?
I am.
Do you communicate with other human beings? You are a storyteller. See how easy that is? I don't care what verbal language you represent, and we may represent many in this room. The universal language is storytelling. We all do it, whether you realize it or not. After this, you will realize how much you're doing it, and you will be intentional moving forward. It is a universal art form and a universal science. When we share our voice, when we share our story, when we share our truth, we are powerful, as was said, because that is context. To my public health people, who are my public health people in the room? Show of hands. Okay, did they ever teach you that context is everything in public health? Good. You know how you get context? Did they teach you that part? I'm teaching it to you now. Okay? If you're dealing with human beings, which I presume we all are, the only way you get to tap into the context of another human being is through their stories. That's the only way they can convey it. Nothing else works. But as important as storytelling is, so is story listening, right? It's 2 sides of the same coin. You cannot have storytelling without story listening. And notice I said listening, not hearing. Hearing is something that you do if you're physically inclined. Listening involves intent. You have to think to listen, and it's acknowledgement. That's existential. I'll get back to that. Ultimately, storytelling and story listening is a mutually beneficial exchange, right? We all feeling it in one way or another. It feels like somebody has to win and somebody has to lose. Not with storytelling. Not with genuine storytelling. It is a situation, it is a circumstance in which everybody can win. I want you to know what's happening to your brain literally right now as you're hearing the buttery sound of my voice, okay? Hopefully you're getting a little less stress in this moment. Now the stress might be waiting for you right outside this door, but right now it's a little bit more relaxed, right? The dopamine, you're being conditioned for the rest of the narrative that I'm going to express with the time that I have left. And oxytocin, yes, you might be feeling a little warm and giddy inside. Storytelling produces love. How about that? We are on one accord, at least in this moment. Why? Because when we are around storytelling, there is the synchronization of our brains. And I could spew a whole bunch of facts and just straight facts if I wanted to. But to do that within a story, you may actually have a better chance of remembering anything that I have to say. Your brain on storytelling. But let's make sure we know what makes a story a story. I'm going to blow your minds real quick. Did anybody not know that every story had a beginning, middle, end? Exactly. The beauty of storytelling is its simplicity, okay? The plot is how you navigate from beginning to middle to end. You incorporate all the elements of storytelling, even the title, right? So you saw the titles of all the stories in the book. I promise you they were intentionally chosen because the title itself tells a story, even before you see any other words. The characters, right? Maybe us, maybe other people. They may be fictional, right? They may be animals, depending on your tradition, right? But they're characters. They help us to move through the story. We live vicariously through them in our stories. The sceneries, the different spaces, the different times in which stories take place, the challenges and the resolutions. Because yes, the struggle is real. That's one thing that we humans understand, struggle. We humans also love a happy ending, resolution, okay? The 3 R's of storytelling, and you heard one, so I'll start with responsibility. Because yes, when someone tells you their story, you should feel honored. You really, really should feel honored. Because they could lie to you really easily. They really, really could. So when they tell you their truth, feel honored, bear that responsibility. Reason. Every story that you see in this book that covers a myriad of experiences dealing with injustices within public health will make sense to you. Because a good story makes sense. It is reasonable. And then ultimately there's respect. The art and science of storytelling involves respect. Respect for the teller, respect for the audience, respect for the characters in the story, respect for the story itself. It is a manifestation, right? It is a renewal, a reminder of all these things that we know to be true that are existential. I will get to that again. The 5 tools of storytelling: voice, body, mind, imagination, and connection. So I know that I have the gift of gab. That may not be your thing. The beautiful thing about storytelling is you can do it any way you want. As my mother would attest if she had time, and if I gave her space, because she would take it if I did. You can sing your story. Right? You can dance your story. Right? You can paint your story. You can sculpt your story. Okay? There is no limit to how you can tell your story. I'm honored, and I'm going to continue with this since I'm not going to be here to do it in person. My mother, native of this city, Miss Pierce's daughter, as well as her other daughter, my Aunt Val. It's my mom's birthday on Wednesday. Yeah. So everybody say happy birthday. Dr. Mama Deborah. If you want to know anything about my flamboyance, look no further than her. But in front of you or around you are 2 of the great storytellers in my life. And that's one of the things that I've learned about storytelling. It's organic for some people. When I think about my Aunt Val, growing up in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous, because that was my Saturday, listening to my Aunt Val tell her stories, right? Her challenges, her resolutions of healing, of recovery, of being clean. I think of every anniversary that I went to at Women's Rap on Maryland Avenue. That place was packed for a dingy-ass basement. It was packed to the gills. Why? Because people near and far this city wanted to hear her story. The seed of how powerful storytelling was implanted when I was a child. Interestingly enough, it manifested here. It was all about connection. The connections that my Aunt Val made with people who were just trying to get clean, who were trying to live their best life, who had dealt with trauma and its many manifestations and just wanted to have a better way of life. Here's what you got to know about storytelling. And since I know there's plenty of scientists in the room, I'm glad I had this particular slide for you. Right? There are critical questions that we ask in science. Who, what, where, when, how, why. That's pretty much it. But you got to know how to use the data. I wish they had taught me this when I was there, but now I'm teaching you. Quantitative data best answers the questions to who, what, where, and when. Qualitative data best answers the questions how and why. To my public health people, if any question that you're trying to ask in this immersive field starts with how or why, stop using that. It won't answer it. It's not meant to. Qualitative data, i.e. stories, are. And so when we think about how we craft our stories, we have to be considerate of all these important questions. Who's in the story? What's the story about? Where is the story taking place? When's the story taking place? How does the story progress? Why does the story exist? Who's telling the story? What story are they telling? Where are they telling the story? When are they telling the story? How are they telling the story? And why are they telling the story? The extent to which we ponder and answer these questions truthfully will make all the difference in how we use this power. So we can think of these various elements. I could be here all day to go through them. So just know they're here. If you need them, I'll give them to you, okay? But think about where your stories come from. The number one repository of your stories, as you will see in this book, life itself. Look no further if you don't have to, okay? Your life are data. Yeah. Your experiences are data. Use it. Think about where those stories come from, your family, the cultures that you represent, your background. But worst come to worst, if you need the internet, it's there. Just be smart about the stories that you find on the internet. You can find some great ones, but use your discernment. If you need to think about where you start with how you tell your story, think of the hero's journey, tried and true, both in real life and in the fictional world. We all have our once upon a time, right? Living our lives, da-da-da-da-da-da, right? But then you have this moment, the way Jill Scott put it, you can't wash it away with soap. It just sticks. And you have to know. You have to understand. And you kind of have that resistance the more you learn more, right? This doesn't feel right. This is going to take me down a different path, but you're supposed to. And that's what the guide, the mentor, the elder, that's what they assure you of. So you go through this journey and you have to commit to change. You have to think about the new spaces that you're occupying. You have to think about the greater goal and how you try to make that change. But in most cases, you fail. And you fail. And you fail. Failure is not only an option, it's a reality. What you learn from the failure, yeah, that's what allows you to finish this, where you deal with the consequences. You change internally so that you can change external. To my public health people, I know they tell us to save lives a million at a time, right? Save yourself first. This is what storytelling offers you. I just learned about this hierarchy of economic offerings, which starts with our basic commodities, which leads to goods and then to services, experiences, and transformations. And it gave me an opportunity to see how storytelling fit within that hierarchy. So at the base, we have our wisdoms, our intelligences, our experiences, and our perspectives. We can then turn that into stories, narratives, recollections, and histories. From those histories, we can create more stories. We can tell those stories. We can preserve those stories. When we do those things, we can create experiences where we reflect on the past memories, but also create new ones like we're doing right now because we are connecting the magic elixir of storytelling. But ultimately, we have the opportunities to be better versions of ourselves when we truly tell our story. Now more than ever, we have to be the best version of ourselves because that is what they don't want. That's what storytelling offers. So I leave you with this. What's the story of your work? And what's the story in your work? Don't give me the boilerplate language. Oh, I study this, I do that, I work here, I work there. Why are you doing it? Now more than ever, why are you doing it? You have a lot of reasons to tap out. Why are you not tapping out? Why am I not tapping out? You looking at them. All right? Why am I not tapping out? Here they are. This is why I'm not tapping out. I have no choice. But helping other people helps me to be the best version of myself. And it feels really, really good. And I want other people to feel this. Even in the midst of chaos, even in the midst of lying, even in the midst of suppression, you can feel good. Leave it to nothing else but your story and sharing that story with others and listening to their stories. So I have to tell you this. Paul Robeson was right. That's why anytime there is suppression, they go for the artist first. So if you are radical, stay radical. But understand this is the point. I'm going to summarize a lot of things for you, and I'm pretty sure every single story is going to reflect this at some point. On the left is what we all want. We want to be acknowledged, we want to be appreciated, we want to be respected, we want to be understood, and we want to be loved. On the right is the opposite of that. What makes it existential is that we can get what's on the left without the right. You can be appreciated without denying somebody else. You can be acknowledged. You can be acknowledged without denying somebody else. You can be appreciated without devaluing somebody else. You can be respected without criticizing someone else. You can be understood and not ignore someone else. And you can be loved without hating someone else. I'm going to guarantee that we all have at least one experience that validates this truth. Let's build around that. That's all I got. Thank you. Any quick questions that I can answer for you? I know that was a lot in a little, and I could have said a whole bunch more, but if there are any questions, any clarifications I can offer, I'm happy to do that this time. Yes?
Can you share the slide?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'll make sure these are not proprietary. I tell people I represent a tradition that is millennia old. How dare I claim it as mine? It's not mine. It's just my chance to give it to you, so absolutely. Anybody else? Okay, these are my questions for you. Did that make sense? Yes. Is that reasonable? Yes. Is it fair? Yes. Can you do it? Yes. Then Mindy, let's keep going.
I told you we were in for a treat. Thank you, David, so much. Okay, so the opportunity is presenting itself now that y'all have been waiting for, which is to hear from a few of our colleagues who have shared their stories with us in the book. So 3 brave souls are all really excited to introduce them and have them come and share their stories with all of you. Monica Guerrero Vasquez is going to share her story, My 10-Year-Old Self. Monica, I'll invite you up. If you want to read from your copy, you've got it right here. Just want to give you that opportunity, and thank you for being here.
Hello, everyone.
Sorry, I'm going to do the stop share and reshare. Bear with me one sec. Back here and reshare again. Okay, thanks, Monica.
I was not nervous. To My 10-Year-Old Self by Monica Guerrero Vasquez, a story told by Massey Conrad. It's early morning when I reach the venue. My car is packed to the brim with supplies for the conference. It's something I love doing. I am a functionally anxious person. That means that I never stop. And even though I have everything planned and checklist, my mind races with all the day tasks. Will there be enough food? Did I send the right address? But there is something else beneath the buzzing thoughts. This weekend, my mother sent me a picture of my grandma for Mother's Day. It's been years since I've seen her. And although that's just life as an immigrant, it's hard to stay present when I'm always thinking ahead to when I can be with my family. Not only will this conference commemorate a decade of my work, it also marks the 10th year anniversary I've been with this organization. I've been reflecting on my work and all its ups and downs. As I start unloading boxes, another thought comes to mind. Am I doing the right thing? It's been a winding path to get where I am now. I come from a humble family in Ecuador. My parents grew up very poor, and almost nobody in my family went to college, let alone to graduate school. My parents supported me and encouraged me to study. College to me was a way to empowerment. I had seen domestic violence in my family growing up, and when my sister and I would imagine ourselves as adults, We had a car, wore suits like Madonna, and said we will never get married. Not so much because we were so independent, but because we were so scared of men. With college, I dreamed I could come back to Ecuador, help my community. I would open schools and grow food in rural communities among the fields and nature. I was an immigrant back then in Madrid, a city with a lot of buildings. My school teachers used to repeat that girls like me don't go to college. My counselor in high school told me I should go to college for medicine because I had good grades in the science track. But medicine was too long, 8 or 9 years, and I wanted to finish school quickly so that my parents could stop working all day, every day. Then my counselor said, okay, so computer science, it's going to be the future. And so I did. Back to my conference. People have started to arrive. A state delegate traveled to present at the conference, and she greets me like she knew me. It was so flattering. Many of our community members came early to the event just to show support. These moments of connection are the ones that I love about my work. Dreams become true. When I was in college, I was awarded a scholarship to go back to Ecuador as an expert on mission. With the United Nations, had me doing IT in a remote rural area of the Andes, where I'm from. The computers had poor signal. They didn't really work. Some of them were boxed. But then I had the opportunity to spend a lot of time working with kids in the local schools. All of the children in that town had at least one parent who had migrated, like mine. There was a lot of depression and stigma and substance use problems. I didn't have the terminology back then. I just felt something was off all the time. And I decided that if I wanted to make a change in the lives of those children, I had to learn more. So I went back to school. This connected me with the international cooperation. I worked on a project in rural Andes in Bolivia working with women. And then life happened, and I moved to the US. Here, I wanted to meet more Latinos. I didn't feel very connected with my identity, my accent, my look. It all screamed out that I wasn't from here. In the US, I found myself in a very diverse community. I could see people who looked like me. I used to want thin, brownish hair, that one that shines in the sun, that looks very clear. I hated my hair. I eventually came to love how black and thick and heavy mine is. This is my identity. My roots are indigenous, and I love it. In Baltimore, after a period of being uninsured and unemployed in a new country, I eventually started the work at Centro Sol for Latinos. At work, I dig deeper into the things I saw in Ecuador. Now I know that substance use and intimate partner violence and depression, all of them were very stigmatized. I became a public health professional. I also learned how important it is for me to be recognized as an Ecuadorian. If you say someone in the community, I am Latina, people don't really care much. But if I say I am Ecuadorian, then they react. They will say something like, oh, I'm Ecuadorian too. Or, oh, I have a friend from Ecuador. Many people in the US are categorized as Latino, but they come from a very vast array of diverse community. Food is sacrosanct to me. So at each event, I always provide a meal from a local Latino artisans if I can. And at this conference, we got to enjoy a wonderful spread of Mexican cuisine. The table is covered with tacos, tortillas, and hard-boiled eggs, and rice, lots of rice. I look around the table of people eating and talking together as one. When I started community work, we'd say, we're helping them. Now I'm trying to change that. No, we're not helping them. We partner, we collaborate, we reach out. I am inspired by the diversity of Baltimore's community and want to step away of that egocentric way to do community work. There were 6 workers, Latinos, who were on the Key Bridge when it collapsed. Some of their families reached out to me to get connected to resources. I asked them if they had immigration status. And I learned that most of them were actually US born. But the news and social media talked about them as if they were undocumented. The problem is that if we say undocumented all the time when we're trying to describe a population, we get stuck in that. This is not a synonym of Latinos. One of the families preferred help from the Mexican consulate because she thought she couldn't access all the services here. To me, this showed failure to pathways for Latinos to access services they have rights to. We can do a better job of speaking positively about the Latino community. Not as the needy, but if they can make a living out of small things like selling tamales or cleaning houses, that's very impressive. And I think immigrants are making a huge difference in Baltimore. At the conference, we talked about many things, from academia to policy, advocacy to funding, and I'm proud of those moments where faculty, researchers, and partners come together to work and still have fun. We had a DJ and we all danced. Growing up, my only role model was Jennifer Lopez. This is not a joke. I often work with teenagers through community service workshops, and I like to reach them by telling stories about myself that they can connect to, such as I took care of my siblings while my parents worked 7 days a week, or how I worked 3 jobs to pay for school and help my parents to pay mortgage of our first house. I want people to see me as someone who advances. Although the imposter syndrome can overwhelm as a non-white immigrant, when I meet with teenagers, I tell them, I'm the boss. And I talk to them about my work so that they can say, oh, this cool person is talking to us. If she's doing that, then I can totally do it. I want them to see that something big is possible for them. In this work, I am learning to advocate for myself. I had a meeting once with someone who said, you're just going to help us, in a very diminishing way. And I could speak up and say, I am not a community liaison. I am an executive director. Something that is very difficult when you're the only one at the table sometimes. We're about to leave the conference. I check to make sure that everything is in order, that the lights are off, the trash is picked up. No matter how much I look to the future, I'm always mindful of staying present, staying connected to my family and my roots, like Jenny from the block. I get in my car and adjust the rear mirror to see the pile of supplies sitting in the back seat of my car. This conference has exemplified what this job means to me. Constantly learning about the community and myself, getting creative, thinking of what we can make with what we have. All my life, I've followed my love of working with people and communities, and I feel grateful for what I have gotten to do. I don't know where life will take me in the next 10 years, but tonight I start driving and I feel like I'm headed into the future. Thank you. I would like to say just one thing. My existence is resistance. Mi existencia es resistencia. Thank you.
Donald, my friend, you are up next to read your story. I'll invite you up. Donald's story is From Subjects to Partners, Rewriting the Narrative of Health Research in Baltimore, and his story is told to Michelle Maffa.
Yes. Good afternoon, all of you. As mentioned, my name is Donald Young. I am your favorite community health worker. This story pretty much tells it all. It was a great experience working with Michelle to do this. From Subjects to Partners, Rewriting the Narrative of Health Research in Baltimore. Donald Young's story is told by Michelle Maffa. Growing up in Park Heights, zip code 21215, health research was taboo. In the collective memory of Baltimore's Black community, research brought up the evils of Tuskegee and the injustices of Henrietta Lacks. To even consider participating was unthinkable. We walked down Monument Street and heard primates screeching from the tops of Johns Hopkins. You want to be a guinea pig? Don't you remember Uncle Ricky? He used to go to Johns Hopkins every week until one day he never came back. 17 years later, we still ain't seen Uncle Ricky. I knew there were clinical trials, experiments done on animals and humans to develop medications, but in my mind, black people were not involved. Research was a horror of the past. Research was something that was done to my community, and certainly not for, and certainly not with my community. Today I walked around Northeast Market 2 Wednesdays a month, proud to see a news story about health research being written in my community. The smells of fresh fried fish and Szechuan flavors float above the tables of Johns Hopkins employees offering free blood pressure measurements and plastic props explaining prostate exams. Across from colorful produce vendors sits a student typing honest notes about who the Baltimore community is and what we need. I see health equities laid bare here. I see gunshot wounds and mental health struggles, food deprivation and chronic disease. But I also see hope. Projects are coming down from the ivory tower of Johns Hopkins to shrink the health inequity gaps just a little. I am filled with awe and gratitude to be in this place where these two worlds collide. My journey to my position as a community health worker was not short or straightforward. There was a time in my life when I did not think I would live to see the age of 25. I finished my military service and found myself in a life of self-sabotage and heroin addiction. Recovery turned into relapse after I lost my mother to a fentanyl overdose in 2016. A positive HIV test the next year was followed by an overdose of my very own on December 17th of 2017. I heard then the voice of God call my name that day. I got clean, and I looked for something to give my life meaning. I started out with the Baltimore City Health Department, which saw value in my lived experience, as most researchers often do, and my intersectional identity. Knowing so many different communities, the African American community, the LGBTQIA community, the substance use community, made me the ideal person to carry out the city's needs assessment. Various projects and positions later, I was hired by Johns Hopkins to bridge the divide between my community and the academic healthcare and research spheres. My job is not about medical expertise or clinical skills. I don't need a stethoscope to take the pulse of my community. In the academic healthcare and research spheres, my job is not about medical expertise. I know its pain points intimately because I've lived them. I feel the injustices of Henrietta Lacks, but I also know that my life-saving HIV medication is a direct result of the HeLa cells. I can tell my community that the type of research done in the past is not the type of research that's being done today. I may not know what happened to Uncle Ricky, but I know that people who consent to be a part of research trials in 2024 will be informed and safe. Folks like me are in the room and are at the table. However, a community health research alone does not close the equity gap. A $10 to $20 gift card 2 months later for answering a survey full of the same questions and Likert scales our community members have been hearing over and over since they were toddlers, sitting on their grandmother's laps, does not show that anyone really cares. No dollar amount can truly compensate for the cost of sharing sensitive, personal details about your life and being reminded year after year that you are stuck in the bottom of the income tier listed on the demographics questionnaire. It seems like the academics always get what they came for. They climb the academic ladder, bring in more grant money, publish findings in a journal article that might as well be written in a different language. But what does the community receive? The community has a right to knowledge. Researchers need to go back to the community and tell them in plain words what the data showed. More importantly, we need to tell them what we're going to do about it. We can't settle for dropping a note in my elderly neighbor's mailbox saying she might be exposed to lead in her home. No, we need to send someone down into that dark basement to check her pipes and take a water sample. Develop, implement, listen, teach. You've heard that before, right? Those are the words that really matter to us. The community has a right to transparency, and not just symbolic transparency where the university buildings have glass walls so everyone can see on the inside. How is the data being used and how is the money being spent? We need real honesty and authenticity in community relationships where everyone walks away from the table feeling like the partnership is a win-win, rather than feeling like they got over on us once again. The community has a right to certainty. We see a car dealership worth of luxury vehicles in the Johns Hopkins parking lot, while community health programs and even my job as a community health worker are subject to the whims of a grant. Research shows CHWs generate $3 per dollar invested. Yet I can't assure my community members I represent that I will still have a job after July 31st. And I didn't. I left. The research couldn't pay. The grant didn't pay. So after I did this story, I didn't have the job. It feels as though, it's almost like this, we saw it coming. It feels as though at any second the funding can dry up. The research methodology could change and the rug could be pulled from under me and from under my community. My imposter syndrome tells me that a recovering addict from Parkite does not deserve to be in my position. But the genuine words of appreciation from members of my community reminds me that not only do I deserve to be here, but both my community and the institution need me to be here. When confronting these continued challenges, I choose to see the glass half full. I see the shortcomings of past and present health research, but I am also confident that we are moving in the right direction. We are elevating voices that were previously silenced or marginalized, and we will use the knowledge we gain to make real change in tackling health inequities together. My own journey from the dark place of addiction to now walking around Northeast Market as a community leader and advocate shows that transformation is possible, not just for individuals, but for entire communities. I am committed to shaping a future where research is not something done to us, but rather done in a collaborative spirit with us. I know we're just a step away. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Donald. Okay, and our last person that's going to be reading their story, Terry Hauser, is going to join us to read her story, Locked in a Nightmare Cage, as told to Eugene Cho.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Terry Hauser, and I'm an advocate for men and women who are survivors of the intimate personal or partner violence. And this is my story as it was told to Jen, and this is her interpretation of my story. I want to preface this first that I am a holistic healer and I do alternative medicines. And and this is the story about Steve. Steve was tall, charming, well-dressed man who came in with liver cirrhosis. He had wanted to use an infrared booth that I had in the Holistic Center and learn about alternative approaches to self-healing and taking care of his health. He did it like through changes of diet, your black seed oil. And after 3 months of working together, he had overheard a conversation with another client of mine about my love for the Baltimore Orioles. So he asked me out on a date, and we went to an Orioles game. And this is how it all started. Like most relationships, we shared some wonderful moments together. And as we became the center of focus in our relationship, right before Thanksgiving of 2019, he had moved in with me after his apartment had caught on fire. And got married around Christmas time that year. And after New Year's, he went to the doctor to get his liver checked. His liver functions were good, but his blood test came back with evidence of cancer, and he was later diagnosed with stage 3 prostate cancer. But just around then, that's when COVID started to come up. And because of COVID shutdown, his follow-up appointments were all canceled. And he was placed on a waiting list for further treatment and surgery. He also lost his job as a chef. He was a chef in one of the big restaurants here in Baltimore. While my business had also had to close down, my business turned into a virtual business. And this is what paid our bills. And this irritated Steve. This is when his narcissism started. It emerged. His mannerisms changed, and he demanded my focus to be on him. His temper was becoming more explosive. He was also paranoid and thought there were people and cars following him. Me, being the healer that I am and in the mode all the time, it was like a losing gambler, I felt. I was finding myself giving him more chances to help him. I asked him about getting a therapist, and later went to one of his appointments with him and was shocked to be told by his therapist that I was being deceitful and was trying to hide things from him. That was making him and not understanding his illness and the impact of it. His paranoia became feverish pitch. He was constantly pulling the blinds down in the house, barricading doors with brooms and shovels so no one could get in. One time, he said that people were harassing him in a parking lot at our apartment building. And I went to the building manager and watched through the videos at the time frame, but I only saw Steve near the car and walking around the parking lot. But there was nobody, absolutely nobody was there. His son gave him a real gun at that incident, and I searched constantly, but I could not find it within the house. He also became more jealous, enraged when it came to my work. I joined him for dinner after a phone call one time that I had spoke to a male client, and I saw that he had duct taped a steak knife to his hand. He said that if he had talked to the client, if I ever had talked to the client again, he would slice my throat. He would take also, at the time, he would take credit cards and use my phone to transfer money from my businesses into his account. Another time, he woke me up in the middle of the night, dragged me down the steps by my ankle, threw me into the living room couch, and I could feel something snap in my back. And he went to the kitchen and came back again with a knife duct taped to his hand. And he said, I'm doing this so that when you bleed like a pig, at least the knife won't fall out of my hand. I blacked out, I fell on the floor, and when I woke up, he was kicking me in my back. Despite these incidents, I kept trying to help him when I should have been trying to save myself. He was like a Jekyll and Hyde. He was a gentle, sweet man when he was in his best behavior. But when it flipped, he turned into a monster. He would always grab my keys, my phones, my purse, so I wouldn't be able to leave. Those were my lifelines, and he knew it. For the first year of living with Steve, we were a full-blown lockdown of COVID. I felt isolated, like I had nobody. It was difficult to hold on to my sanity. My family, my friends lived far away. One of my neighbors one time called the police after seeing him trying to throw me out a window. But he was gone by the time they arrived, and they weren't any physical marks on me per se. There was only when he did not leave marks on me, he would leave the house. Once he duct taped me to a chair and left the keys and the phone and the wallet went with him. He blamed his violence on the neighborhood and the people that lived around us. We even moved because he wanted to be near his mother, but that didn't change him. If anything, moving had made him seem to escalate his violence. I later discovered that he was abused by his mother growing up. When he was crying one time, she had dressed him like a girl, stuck him out on the front porch so his friends could mock him like a big crybaby. Another time, when he didn't eat dinner, they put him in a dog cage and then fed him dog food for a week. He was only 5 at that time. When he was finally able to get his prostate surgery, his pre-op test came back positive for cocaine and fentanyl. I knew he was a recovering alcoholic, but he never told me that he was using drugs, nor did I suspect. His surgery went well. As a cancer, we had contained his prostate. We didn't have to do chemotherapy or radiation, and I thought that was the end and that he would stop hurting me. But it went back into his drugs, and the verbal abuse and the physical abuse escalated again. And it wasn't until I finally got away that I was also found out that he was diagnosed as a paranoid schizophrenic 4 years before I had met him. And then he had been incarcerated for drugs. When I could start going to his appointments, when I could start doing my appointments again at the end of COVID, I started to see a therapist at the House of Ruth. Our first appointment, when I came home after the appointment, he grabbed him and twisted my arm behind me and said, "Why are you talking to people about me?" He had bugged the center where I was working because he had thought that I was having affairs. And in addition, he couldn't figure out why my male client, in addition, I could not have figured out why my adult clients was dropping down. But then I later was told by them that they were confronted as they left my center by my husband. I woke up one night with a gun to the back of my head. I instinctively pushed him away and then felt the gun, and I wondered, because we had a BB gun, oh my God, which one is it, the 9mm or was it the BB gun? And when I woke up, I was terrified, and something in me just snapped. And at that moment, within the terror, the spark of defiance it ignited in me. Years of pent-up fear morphed into anger, and I grabbed the lamp, struck him as hard as I could. Desperately, a desperate act brought me precious seconds to escape. The apartment became like a twisted racetrack, and I kept moving with him, chasing me, and shutting doors behind me, and he finally slowed down. After the third time, I heard him into the kitchen, opening the drawers for knives. Eventually, I heard him go out the front door, so I took my keys, my phone, my wallet, and my dog, who was in his cage, because he used to threaten to kill my dog if I would leave. That's when I heard him come back into the house, and he sat on the bed with the knife in his hand. "I'm going to cut your face so nobody would want to look at you ever again." But it wasn't that was making me nervous. He stopped moving. And while he was talking to me, he had this eerie voice at the same time. And I peeked around the corner to see where he was exactly at so I could go out the front door. And there was something holding him in place. His eyes were black, very eerie black. And then I heard my mother's voice echoing in my ears, though she had been dead for 10 years now. "Get out. Get out now." And that's when I grabbed my belongings, my dog, and my purse, and ran out the door. When I got to the car, before I could reach it, he drove to the house of Ruth. Fortunately, the evidence on the camera was left capturing 30 terrifying seconds of Steve threatening with the gun in his hand. I was able to access that footage before he deleted it, using it to get a protective order against him, and it became my shield. During the 3 years I spent with him, I never knew what to expect and treaded lightly so I didn't trigger any explosive temper. The scars, both physically and emotionally, ran really deep. Those actions, Steve's, were like fueled by a combination of drugs and mental illness. I know the responsibility lies solely with him, but there is a part of me that feels that maybe he also was a product of his own environment. And this, his own story of trauma and child abuse. People like him do need separated from their victims, but we also need to get them help that they need, especially with mental health. I still feel that locking them up someplace and throwing away the key is not the answer. Now that he's away, I feel safe. I don't wish ill of him, but don't want him in my life either. I'm also more cautious with people that I don't know well. It was difficult to forgive him. It was difficult to forgive myself, first. But I don't know that it wasn't my fault, and I don't hold myself responsible for him. What's important is that I'm able to get away from the shattered life. Today, I'm piecing together my fragments of life. The journey to healing is ongoing, but I'm no longer a victim. I am a survivor that's thriving, and I am a true advocate of those of IPV. Thank you. Any questions? I'll answer any questions.
Terry, Donald, Monica, thank you each so much for sharing your stories with us. You're already doing what we talked about hoping to do through the power of your stories, in connecting with one another in this room, and feeling the power of those stories, and knowing that we need to be activated to be advocates and champions for change. So thank you. I want to also ask anybody that's in the room that is a storyteller or a story writer, if you're able to, would you please stand and be recognized?